Hello everyone. Welcome back to Father and Son. 'Tis I, Captain Logan, and look, it's Jayson.
It's me.
How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Are you excited to finally bring our show back?
Yes.
Jayson and I have not podcasted together since before the twins were born, and he's been on some videos here and there, just helped us review the Batman and such, but we haven't done our regular podcast in a long time, and we've really missed it, and we've prepared for several things over the last few months that we just didn't end up having time to sit down and do, which is unfortunate. I want to say we watched 3 or 4 different movies we planned on doing. We watched a whole season of television that we never actually ended up reviewing. The camera's up here, by the way, just in case you weren't aware.
Yeah, I know.
Are you doing okay? You look like you have live stage fright.
I mean, no.
No, not so much. Oh, were you distracted by something cool in the bunker that you're just staring at?
No, I'm just I'm used to staring forward, instead of like to my left. Like if I go like this, then I'm good.
Oh, okay. All right, well, why don't you just do that then? Here, we'll just... There you go. Anyway, welcome live. If you're watching live, we decided to start broadcasting these. My career has kind of gone in a live streaming direction, and it's a lot of fun doing these kinds of things with an audience, partly just to interact with folks, and partly because of all of the information that people will bring to the table that we didn't have coming into it in the first place. We watched Power Rangers in Space over the last few weeks, and I have to say, I've had this with a few things that we've reviewed on this show, but I watched this somewhat more casually than Jayson did, so he's going to really run point on this, and there will be a little bit of a few blind spots here and there for me, because I was having to take care of twins while we were watching the show, and sometimes there would be episodes where I was able to focus more of my attention on them than others. So if I am lacking in memory or information on certain episodes, that would be the reason, but I did see the majority of it, and that we are going to go ahead and talk about. I think there is actually one episode that we skipped on accident that we meant to go back to and never did.
Yeah.
Isn't that the episode where Zane leaves?
Yeah, he leaves to go to the Rebels.
Yeah, I missed that happening and was like, wait, why is Zane not here? And then he starts showing up at the last minute as a Deus Ex Machina in a lot of episodes, and I was like, why isn't he here in the first place?
Yeah.
Not that the Deus Ex Machina thing ends up really making all that much sense anyway, but at least I know why he's not always there.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jayson, why don't you get us started with this and tell us a little bit about your background and experience with this show before we went back and rewatched it. I'll say for you, I had never seen this front to back, so this was kind of a new experience for me. I'd seen a lot of the show, but I had never watched it cover to cover.
Yeah, so I have seen every season of Power Rangers through RPM. But I don't remember almost any of it.
A lot of that's when you were little.
Yeah, so going into this, I remembered the few episodes that I just kept watching over and over again for some reason. I don't even like those episodes anymore, at least most of them. But yeah, I was kind of playing going into this. I was kind of like Dad. But, I mean, I had seen it before, and I remembered...
Does this start coming back to you quite a bit?
Yeah. Well, not quite a bit, but a little bit.
So, did you think of this as one of your favorite shows from just what little memory you had of it from before?
I did, yeah. So, it is in my top 5. It's still in my top 5, in the same place that it was. For a minute, it got off my top 5, and I'll talk about that, but...
Just for context, what is your favorite series of Power Rangers at the moment?
At the moment,
well,
SPD.
What would put you go at the very top?
SPD.
So we'll have to do an overview of that at some point.
Yeah. Can that be the next one, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean...
Because I need to show you that series.
There are a few of our viewers that are into Power Rangers like we are that have begged me to do something like this on Dino Thunder forever. So I've been kicking around going ahead and finally going through that series with you again. And you and I actually have done that before, or at least a lot of it, but we've never, sat down and talked about it. But if you really want to do SPD first, we can.
I do.
Well, see, I say that, but those are in order. It would actually be kind of fun to do like a double feature thing where, I mean, I don't mean talk about them together, but where we go through Dino Thunder and then we go through SPD and we just do videos on each of them.
That could be fun.
If we're doing SPD, I'm gonna put my foot down. I said we have to do Dino Thunder first, because it would be weird going backwards with that. I don't mind jumping around some with Power Rangers, but I mean, those are, that's a season that follows another season.
Yeah, and SPD has some stuff with Dino Thunder, so.
Would you say that you prefer the seasons that are more science fiction driven than fantasy driven?
Yeah. Cause I mean, Mystic Force is fine. And
but there's others, like The Last Galaxy is more of a fantasy series than it is a sci-fi show.
And I just don't really, none of it is really coming to me.
Of just what happens in Lost Galaxy?
Yeah, and what happens in Mystic Force.
Well, it might be fun to go straight on to Lost Galaxy from this.
Yeah.
We could talk about that, too. Because I've never watched through that show. I've seen just a couple episodes that Eric's had me watch with Magnet Defender, but that's it.
I just know there's swords in it. And Corone pretends to be Astronema, and she looks awesome. Like, her hair is my favorite Astronema hair, and it's not even Astronema. It's just a wig.
Talk about the Astronema hair thing for a minute.
Yeah, so
we'll just start jumping right into this, and we'll jump all over the place.
She, does different hairstyles. It makes no sense.
Until she gets reprogrammed in that last quarter, and then she has the same hairstyle for the rest of it.
Yeah. She has the red. Yeah.
Which is one of her cooler looks.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves with this, but I can't help but, and I don't know how much of this is intentional, it is Power Rangers. It's hard not to take this kind of thing with a grain of salt, because this feels almost too sophisticated for this material, but this is one of the more sophisticated series in at least the Mighty Morphin era. But Jayson, I have a hard time not reading kind of a thematic thing in the hair changing and then suddenly not changing.
Yeah.
Where she's this brainwashed, insecure character who, if you've not seen this show in a while, or you've not seen this show, the idea is that our main villain in this is not typically evil, like with your traditional Power Rangers villains that just seem to sort of be born that way. They're not sympathetic. They didn't get to that place. It's a real straight up good versus evil kind of story. This brings in as close to shades of gray as we've ever had in Power Rangers up to this point, where you do have straight up evil characters, and like Dark Spectre, who's just kind of a force of nature and has always been that way and wants to take over the universe, like your Zed, like your Mondo, like your Divatox, whoever, but he brainwashes a good person to be evil, but not in the way that Rita puts a spell on Tommy, where he's a good person who's supposed to sort of have edge to him, I guess, but is kind of forced to be straight up evil. But this girl is molded as a child to be evil, and there's this kind of nature-nurture component, I guess, where she is not inherently evil and has a choice, but she was raised by someone that is evil in Ecliptor. But even Ecliptor is more, I would argue, conflicted than your average Power Rangers villain or henchman or whatever. And so anyway, the hairstyles, Jayson, seem to me to kind of denote that, or kind of reflect that kind of insecurity and lack of knowing who she is, where she keeps kind of visually reinventing herself. And then she turns against Dark Spectre and against Ecliptor and everyone, and joins the team for a while, which is really interesting. And those are some of the better episodes of the show, I think. And then she's reprogrammed later by Dark Spectre and becomes Astronema again and is evil. Her performance changes massively. She's kind of a different character at that point, and she has one hairstyle after that because she's reprogrammed, which is more like being under a magic spell, and now she's consistent. And I don't know, there's some actual kind of character analysis that I'm able to do with this, with a Power Rangers show, which is really unusual for this particular era. But was that a thing that you picked up on, or did you think that it was just let's mess around and do different hairstyles?
Well, yeah, I felt like she was kind of just she had more freedom than she has when she becomes reprogrammed. Where, like, she doesn't really think to do that because she's reprogrammed and doesn't really, like, she's gonna, yeah, like what you said, she's just evil instead of, like, choosing to be evil or whatever, like having the choice.
Yeah. Brian says, Cap, you always talk about stuff being good or sophisticated for Power Rangers, but you haven't actually seen the good seasons or given them a fair chance. But that's not totally true.
Can we just watch my top 5?
Yeah, we should. I mean, here's the thing. Because there's a lot of Power Rangers I've not seen or not seen much of, certainly. And my favorite seasons, or at least the seasons that I admit are better even than some of my favorites that I have nostalgia for from when I was a kid, are certainly a great deal smarter and more sophisticated than the shows I grew up with. But even Dino Thunder, which has like some real character growth and some real character dimension, characters that are actually pretty well defined, I still wouldn't like match up against a lot of like regular traditional narratives as like great fiction. But I mean, it gets a lot closer, you know what I mean? Like, that show is brilliant for Power Rangers, but it's also, you know, half decent for your average anything else. I mean, I think that like storytelling wise, I think that show probably matches up against like a lot of, you know, CW stuff or things aimed at teenagers from when I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, I've never seen very much of SPD. I've watched a little bit of Time Force, which seems to be a much better written show and a lot more involved, and there's a lot of real drama there. RPM I've seen a little bit more of now, and that show for Power Rangers is like on an astronomical level, absolutely. But having not seen all of that show, I don't know how I would say that would stack up against like just standard television.
And you have to watch Jungle Fury.
And I've seen a little bit of that, and I like what I've seen of it. But I mean, at that point, it's also like, should we be just comparing it to like kids television or a television at large, you know, that kind of thing. But again, getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, I guess.
Also, 90s versus 2000s, they're different decades, so there's different like
sensibilities.
Yeah, like take, I don't know, like Zeo Turbo versus RPM. Like, they're totally different shows.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is kind of easily, without question, the best show of the Mighty Morphin era, at least of everything I've seen, because I've not watched all the way through Lost Galaxy, which sort of counts and sort of doesn't. Like, Lost Galaxy feels like this transition show moving away from Mighty Morphin and getting into, you know, switching it up every season. I think it's really strange, Jason. And I had seen Countdown to Destruction before, but I'd never watched, again, this entire show all the way through. I do think it's really strange that we don't use Countdown to Destruction as a way to full-on reboot completely when we get to Lost Galaxy. It's very strange that there's any holdover from Space at all in that show.
So, Space was originally going to be the last show.
Entirely. Like, they weren't going to keep going.
They weren't going to keep going. But there was just too much, like, you know, like, there were just too many fans, and they had to keep going.
But even still, you'd think that would be the place to start going, okay, every season we're going to have not just a new cast, but we're going to do what the Sentai does, where we start the continuity over, and we're not going to, you know, we're not going to have any connection to what we've done before. I mean, like, the Zordon tube gets destroyed, and we get rid of evil throughout the universe. It's very strange that it's not a full-on reboot.
Well, I feel like Lightspeed Rescue is when it gets a full-on reboot.
Yeah, it is.
But I feel like they just can't get away from Space, and they just keep like, it's just, oh, we have to bring back Psychos.
I would just love to know the story behind that.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I've not watched enough of that show. Do you get the sense at the beginning of it that it is supposed to be completely unrelated, and then somewhere in the middle of that show, it's like, oh wait, no, it still counts?
Yep.
Is that how it watches?
Yeah. Well, Lost Galaxy is, so, to me, yes, Space is the end of the Zordon era, but so Space is the end of the Zordon era because Zordon dies, But Lost Galaxy, for me, is the end of the Zordon era.
A couple comments I want to read here. Well, and I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. And then we just have... Well, the thing is, I wouldn't want to lose the crossovers with Lost Galaxy, because that's some of the best Power Ranger stuff I've ever watched.
Yeah.
The Pink Psycho episode is one of the... is actually, like, the most depressing Power Rangers thing I've ever seen. It's really sad what happens at the end of that, but maybe we'll get there at some point. A couple comments I want to read. Daniel Davis, Space basically saved Power Rangers after Turbo nearly finished it. I don't think anybody would disagree with you. That's absolutely right. And I think that kind of rekindled a lot of fan interest again. And it's just crazy how ambitious this show was. I'd argue that you might not have had all the history of Power Rangers going up if the show hadn't been as good as it was. Because, I mean, maybe with Lost Galaxy, I don't fully know the story there, but maybe with Lost Galaxy they would have tried one more season. But I don't know if the momentum would have been sustained. Because, people started losing interest some in Zeo, and then Turbo just really blew it. And then I guess there was still... I guess Space was just good enough that it brought some people back, or maybe established some new fans. I mean, it had Power Rangers had only been on, or had already, I should say, been on for 6 years at that point. And so you've got not a new generation, but a new group of kids coming up that I could see that show really appealing to them. Like the new set of, because you'd have a lot of kids that were getting into teenager years that might, be losing interest or afraid they're going to get beat up in the playground if they're still watching Power Rangers, right? Mm-hmm. And then you've got like a new group of, the 7, 8, 9-year-olds that would be looking at that. So if that show keeps their interest, and they might be able to sustain that into another season, even if the whole cast changes at that point. The show was really popular.
Yeah. And like, I wasn't there, but
of course, yeah.
Like, I know that it was really popular. And I feel like this is very much like after Turbo, they were like really like stepping up their game.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Turbo sucked. Let's do this instead. And it didn't work because the first half of the show feels just like more Turbo to me.
I agree with that with a lot of those episodes. There's some okay stuff here and there, and obviously the initial seeds of the overarching story with Andros and Corona and all of that is there from the beginning. So, I mean, you have to give it mythology stuff and backstory stuff that, like, they're already thinking in a more serialized and more sophisticated direction than we'd had before. Power Rangers has always been serialized to some degree. The show is way, way better at it than Mighty Morphin was, certainly. And again, feels like there's something akin to real character drama. But you're right. I mean, the second half is where the mythology stuff and the plotting like really takes off. Yeah. There's a lot of kind of one-off just like unfunny comedic episodes, especially in that first half. And then we'll occasionally sprinkle those into the Psycho arc, which is unfortunate. But
yeah. Well, and I don't want to show anyone the entire season of Space.
I want to say you could say that about any Power Ranger show, though.
Yeah, but especially Space.
But there's always some kind of lame episodes that would be really easy to leave out, and then the whole thing would just watch a great deal tighter.
Yeah. But, but for this, you would leave way more episodes out. Like,
do you think half? Would you say as many as half?
Yeah. Well, I would only show someone select episodes of the show. It's kind of like Enterprise.
Yeah.
Where
there's a lot of weird comparisons you could make to, and Star Trek in general, and obviously the show is heavily ripping off, like, I was going to say cribbing from, but just straight up ripping off Star Trek all over the place, and I'm sure we'll get to that and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the reasons this show really appealed to me when it was on, but I was old enough at that point that I wasn't keeping up with Power Rangers as regularly, and I think I was just too busy, and so I didn't watch this all the time while it was on. But I did like that. It was fun that Power Rangers went in a Star Trek direction, and it seemed like a smart way to go because we've been Earth-centered, we'd stayed terrestrial, but we kept fighting evil space aliens that came to us. So naturally, at some point, it would make sense to take a Ranger team and, you know, go to them, so to speak. I mean, you know, we're not supposed to escalate the fight and all of that, but this was the situation where the threat is not always at Earth, but in some other places. Ripping off Star Trek to the, I guess I'll just do this now, ripping off Star Trek to the point where, first of all, the sets look very, very Voyager. And this was just as Voyager was coming on. I think we would have been in second or third season at this point. And the corridors especially just look like the corridors in that show.
Yeah.
You have replicators, they just don't call them that. You have
I don't
straight up
remember what
food
they call.
replicators. You have, I don't remember either. I can't remember if they go to the synthesizer place like
Yeah,
TOS did, but
synthesizer.
is that what they said? You have the holodeck, which I think even had holo in the name of it. Did it not?
I think it did, yeah.
I forget what the name of that was, but
Holocaust. No.
yeah. Oh, goodness, don't say that! Okay, that was an amusing joke, but a little...
They just came to mind.
It's a little racy for this. Wow, why did you say that? Anyway.
I don't know.
Did you know we're live?
No.
It was, oh no, Simudeck is what they called that. It wasn't even
Yes.
hollow, it's Simudeck. If only I'd remember that, you wouldn't have told that joke. It's a really unfortunate joke. Brian, they still went to high school, and I don't know how. They're in space most of the time. They're dealing with this Dark Spectre plot and fighting Astronema all the time. I don't understand how they're... And what is Andros doing?
And like,
Is he just pretending like he's in high school?
To grade school? Like, is
Well,
he even able to
not
go
on
to
Earth. He's
high
from
school?
KO-35.
Yeah, but is he even
is a
able
human.
to go to high school?
But he's not but he wasn't, you know, raised on Earth.
Yeah.
But anyway, I like that we finally went in a straight-up science fiction direction, because I always more appreciated those aspects to Mighty Morphin, and kind of wish we'd leaned into that more. I was just never as into... Some of this is just personal taste thing, but I was never as into the, you know, magic spells and potions and that kind of stuff, and I wanted more of a grounded, like, specific rule set for... I've talked about this before, for the Morphin Grid and... you know, morphing and calling Zords and just how all that stuff worked, what power levels mean and all of that stuff. Not that we have, you know, a lot more specifics about it here, but it feels like it's just more cemented in a specific genre. So, I mean, do we have any straight-up magic stuff that happens in the show? I mean, it does feel, by and large, pretty technology-driven.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
Forgetting... AMC, well, I missed it. Jason said a racy joke on Geekvolution. Yes, he did, and I'm not going to repeat it either. But I can't believe you said that. But anyway, not... I mean, not to mention weird things like characters are able to just stand out in the middle of space and talk without space helmets. Stuff like that. It's real Superman 2 logic going on.
Mm. But yeah, I feel like everybody goes back to the show.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, it's all over comics.
Yeah.
It's all over, like, the board game and video games.
Well, and how much of that is because it's just a well-remembered, you know, beloved Power Ranger show, and how much of it is because there's a lot more meat on the bone for, again, mythology stuff. Like, it feels really foundational for... I mean, it's interesting because I think Lost Galaxy originally, if memory serves, Jason, was supposed to do a lot in explaining where... like the Morphin Grid and where the Power Ranger powers come from and all of that stuff. And then it ultimately didn't end up doing that. But this feels really foundational for the universe. Not in explaining anything as far as the lore goes, but just peeling back the curtain and giving us a more, like well-lived-in universe. Do you think? Mm-hmm. A more defined world.
Yeah.
And we bring back everything. Like, this feels like the culmination of everything we've had so far, and like you said, I mean, if Countdown to Destruction was supposed to be, like, the very end of Power Rangers entirely, it makes a lot of sense that we were ambitious enough to bring back all of the villains and a lot of, even ally characters just for cameos in that last episode and do, a big, kind of epic. And it's bookended nicely with that. That we start with that big meeting that all the villains have and dealing with Dark Spectre, because I want to say nearly every Power Ranger show up to this point, with maybe the exception of Turbo, you've always got a bigger villain than the one you're dealing with that retroactively gets added later. We find out that they were always there and the villain you're dealing with always knew. But, like, Rita was the biggest, scariest, most powerful villain until we found out that she was actually working for a guy named Lord Zed. And he was the scariest, most powerful villain. Nothing topped him until we found out that Rita had a father that was more powerful than him, but I guess, wasn't really doing anything over in this sector of the universe. And then, even beyond all of them, you had the Machine Empire, which was way scarier and more powerful. And when they show up, Rita and Zed just jump in a Winnebago and go drive around the moon. And yeah, they don't seem that much more powerful, but boy, the way Lord Zed talks about it, I mean, he's horrified. And then you get to this, and when Dark Spectre's name comes up, you've got Zed and Rita like, oh, Dark Spectre, I guess we're not going to mess with anybody that claims to be working for that guy.
Yeah.
At that point, they were total jokes, of course. But but anyway, to my original point, it was just really neat the way the show was bookended with all of those villains at the beginning when their meeting gets interrupted by Andros, and then at the end when they all come back together again to kind of help take over the world and worship Dark Spectre, who is not destroyed by our heroes.
So in Countdown to Destruction,
yeah,
is that Trey or is that Jayson?
That is Trey.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's an intergalactic group. Mm-hmm. So it's allies that we've had from different shows that have been working with the rebels, we're told. So you've got this rebellion from KO-35 that's been fighting back against Dark Spectre, who's taking over the universe. And I guess all roads were supposed to be leading to this big invasion that you have at the end of the show, but it really felt kind of arbitrary to me that it happens right now unless I miss something. Like, what am I missing at the beginning of Countdown to Destruction? Where, like, now he's positioned to finally come into Earth and take over the Earth. Like,
he has enough energy.
Oh, is that what it is?
Building up energy.
Okay,
this time.
Is that all it is? Well, it's Power Rangers. It's always about building up energy, right?
Yeah, and the shared energy pool.
So he's been building energy, and okay.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense then.
Yeah, I don't think we've really talked about this.
Yeah.
The acting.
So
it's terrible.
So this show is such a mixed bag, right? Because it's so rich in, like I said, lore and world building, I guess is the best way to put it. And there's some surprisingly enticing kind of soap opera stuff, but it's the best Power Ranger show in that sense, at least up to this point. And I mean, I think overall it's still one of the best as far as world building goes. There's a reason the comics do not stop going to this stuff. It ties everything together. And even after this, it still feels like the show that most does that to me, I think, in giving you just a sense of what this universe looks like apart from the Power Rangers, right? Mm-hmm. It is one of the worst shows as far as acting goes, and I would say even, and maybe I'll get some flack for this, characterization of the Rangers themselves. The thing that I find least interesting to talk about with this is our team.
Yeah.
How well can you describe any of them?
There's nothing to talk about. Like, you have all this character
besides
development.
kind of Andros, at least on paper.
Yeah, you have all this character development with Corone and Ecliptor and Darkonda and Dark Spectre and everything. And then we know nothing about any of our Rangers. I feel like...
And maybe more of that is in Turbo, but we don't build on anything with it, really.
Well, yeah, it's like, am I missing anything from Turbo, though? Like, because I know you haven't really seen the last half of that.
It's hard to watch, yeah.
But,
well, and it gets better. I haven't seen the last half since I was a kid. I did watch most of that when it was on.
But I don't know anything about Cassie. Like, I was going to put one of the, like, Cassie or something on my list, like, as my favorite character.
Favorite Rangers, yeah.
A favorite character, but I don't know anything about her.
I'll say she's one of the better actors in the show.
She's the only good one, Ranger-wise.
The acting in the show is really rough, and I think it's rough on all sides until you get toward the end, and I'm either just adjusting to what Astronema / Corona is doing, or her acting gets better.
Her acting gets better because she's a totally different character. Like,
she does a really good job of differentiating what she's doing when she's reprogrammed versus what she does.
When she's reprogrammed, she has no feelings. Yay. Because there's nothing like, nah. Like, I mean, she doesn't sound like an old woman, but, I don't know why I went with that voice.
I don't either.
But she's, like, really, like, sassy, I guess. And it doesn't, I don't like it.
Van Dad says, shame the acting can't keep up, so he agrees with us. Yeah, I mean, it is a testament to how cool this show is on paper, at least, and visually and stuff. I mean, one thing I meant to mention earlier is Turbo relies really hard on Sentai footage. It just doesn't have the story ideas to keep up with the coolness of a lot of what's going on in that action. This show doesn't have that problem, to the point where a lot of the best stuff I've seen, at least up to this point, but even some after, for Power Ranger action, is some of the American stuff, and not just the Sentai stuff. This Sentai, what I've seen of it is awesome. I forget the name of this one.
Mega Ranger.
Thank you. I've seen the pilot and a couple of other episodes, and it's a really cool premise, and I need
and it's about video games, so
I need to get back to that and watch it. But testament to the show that it was able to take footage from a show that is of a completely different theme, even. That, like you said, is about virtual reality and video games. This is... And, by the way, people always talk about that, or I've heard people a lot talk about the Sentai like it has nothing to do with space. That's not accurate, because the base that the heroes in that show have is in orbit or on the moon. I think it's in orbit. So, like, there is space footage in that show because they're operating in space, but they're not space travelers. But there is a space component. Like, I never understood how you could possibly get, like, spaceship and everything from a show that has nothing to do with space. It made more sense when I finally watched the show, because there is a space component, but it's not a Star Trek show. It's not a space opera like this is.
No. Yeah. Should we dive into characters and episodes?
Yeah, we can go do that.
Yeah.
But sorry, but real quick, finishing that thought,
yes.
This is not this I think integrates Sentai footage really well, and better than some other shows do, but also brings quite a bit of cool American stuff to the table. And that's a thing I always look for in a good Power Rangers show, where it knows what to do with the Sentai footage, but it doesn't lean on it too much. Zeo has that problem, and I think Zeo leaned really hard on the Sentai footage. Like, a lot of the stuff that I most love in that show had nothing to do with us, and I didn't realize it when I was a kid. So we kind of got lucky with that, and we tried the same thing with Turbo, and it didn't work out because kids just weren't as into the car theme. And I always thought part of the problem with that, too, was that appealed to a like leaner demographic maybe than like dinosaurs did, where it's like, well, it's got to be kids that are really into playing with cars, and arguably dinosaurs is a more universal thing for kids, and then cars is a thing that you either are really into or you are into and then grow out of. But also, I think arguably boys and girls at a certain age are kind of into dinosaurs, and maybe that's not as true for cars. I don't know if I'm right about that. But Power Rangers has always been a thing. Somebody mentioned this earlier, saying, I think we had a female viewer, I forget her name, who was like, I wish more girls were into Power Rangers. But I think as kids, there were a lot of girls watching the show, because it had, of course, female protagonists that were on equal footing with the guys, and we never called attention to it. They were just part of the team. And so, anyway, I think Turbo maybe turned off some girl viewers. Like, it's cars now. Like, that's not as much fun to play with. Like, I don't care about that as much. Maybe that happened. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this show, I think, got a lot more creative with the American stuff, and it also didn't suffer from that Zeo problem of Megazord fights that lasted 6 seconds because we basically just showed up and hit a monster with a sword and we were done. And
there's no action in that show. There's not enough.
Yeah, and you're just saying in Zeo?
Yeah.
And Space, I think we got back to basics with the martial arts. There's a lot more out of costume fighting in this show than there was in Zeo, and I think Turbo too. So that's the thing I appreciate. Daniel Davis, I remember the living car episode so much. Do you mean of this episode or of this show? Are we talking about Tankenstein?
No.
Or are we talking about
either Tankenstein
or the one where
Justin
comes back?
Yeah.
There is a fair bit of car stuff in this show too, but
yeah. He's probably talking about Tankenstein though. That is the weirdest episode. I don't get that.
This really cheap attempt at doing Mad Max in a Power Rangers episode?
Yeah.
It's very strange. You've got basically just Humvees driving around, and we call one of them a monster, but it's just a Humvee.
And then he goes around and just
chases people?
Runs over the Rangers so that they get stranded in a desert, and then they run over them again in the desert so they can kill them.
And then one of the tanks gets blown up, and then it was called Tankenstein earlier, and I was like, tanks. It's not even a tank, it's a Humvee. And I'm like, why does that have a name? And then it blows up, and then Astronema makes it grow, and now it's Sentai footage, and it's a monster.
Yeah.
So
it's like an actual, like, I don't even know if that even is a take.
It's, I think, the second to last episode of the season.
It is. I don't get that.
And it's there just as an excuse to blow up another Megazord. Because we have to gradually get rid of all the Megazords before the invasion so that it's harder for us to fight the bad guys.
One of our Zords got destroyed by Humvee. I don't think that's how that works.
Dude, Davis, yeah, Tankenstein, that one was so bizarre. It's really bizarre. Okay, you want to get into some characters?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, my favorite character, before thinking of this character that is my favorite character, I was like, this is a hard one. I don't even know who's my favorite character, because there's no good characters for me. I mean, I think...
It's just so weird how much more character-driven this show is, but I don't actually like the characters much of the time. It's very strange.
Because I kept going to Astronema, but I'm like, I don't like Astronema in half of the season.
I think by the end I like her a lot.
Yeah, I like her a lot, but I can't say she's my favorite character because she's not good in half the show. And then I can't...
Are you going to give it to Decca?
No. I didn't think of that, but...
I don't know if that counts as a character
and
exactly.
And then I thought of Andros, but I'm like, he's not... He's Andros. Like I really liked him when I was little and stuff. And it was kind of a tie.
Such a better character on the page than the actual execution.
Between Andros and Astronema. And then I thought of my actual favorite character, which is Ecliptor.
Sure. I think Ecliptor's a lot of people's favorite characters in this show, probably.
And here's the reason why.
Okay.
All this person has to do is voice acting. So it's amazing.
But what about the character himself makes you put him in that category?
So he's kind of like
is
mysterious.
Is it just the look? Or, yeah, he is mysterious,
And he looks really cool. And he's got a deep voice. He's like...
One of the mistakes we make in the show with Sentai footage is we'll have things that... And again, I haven't watched that whole show, but you'll have things that are clearly a plot point in that show that we just throw in here and don't have any explanation for. Like, there are monsters that have Ecliptor bits in them. Like, I don't know if Ecliptor built them in the other show or what, but
Yeah.
like, there's one monster that's got horns, that's got, like, the Ecliptor pattern, the kind of, like, you know, video gamey, I don't know, like, digital pattern thing, because he looks like a video game character.
The hexagon.
Yeah.
Is out.
He's, you know, he looks like he's out of Tron.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another one that has that pattern, like, in his midsection or something.
Yeah, it's really weird.
I don't know what that's about.
What was that?
I don't know.
That was weird. I just heard like a bag like crackle or something.
I didn't.
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
sure. Anyway.
So my least favorite character, you probably know what it is.
Not right off. Is this going to be like a one-off character?
Nope.
Or is it? You mean of like main cast or
Yep.
recurring? Is it gonna be? I guess I'm not totally sure. So I'm not gonna guess. Who is it?
Zane.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I wasn't sure if you'd say Zane or if you'd say what's his name? Green Ranger or Black Ranger.
Oh yeah, Carlos.
Carlos, yeah. Carlos is fine.
Ecliptor.
So I don't want to be a jerk and make fun of his accent like Jason's doing over here, but I'm not calling you a jerk. While we were watching it, we were kind of making fun of his accent a little bit because, and I've never gone back and actually listened to that actor in interviews or anything, but I feel like he's got to be really exaggerating an accent in this show because it just doesn't sound very natural to me. But yeah, there are episodes where he's a little bit better than in others. Like, I think he's middle of the road as far as acting goes in this show. I think he's better than TJ even. But, like, generally speaking.
Yeah,
TJ's just got some bizarre line reading.
I think TJ is worse in this show than he is in Turbo.
You think so?
Yeah.
Maybe so.
He just gives random weird looks. And again, like, yeah, line reading is weird.
I thought he was elevated by Adam in his character episode when Adam comes back. I thought they were okay together.
What, Carlos?
Carlos, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the better episodes of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for, like, non-major mythology episodes where we're not dealing with the overarching A story.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a cool episode. And it was nice to see a reunion kind of episode where, and I mean, this is real early with those, but it was nice to see an episode like that where we bring back an old Ranger, and we have a lot of reverence for the character, and we actually give him something really cool to do. Like, that didn't feel phoned in at all, and it made me really, like, that felt like it was on more of Forever Red level, and it made me really wish we could get back to that with the reunion episodes we do now, because they're always lame. And, I mean, in Neo Saban era and in current Hasbro era. Like, not only is it kind of nice that he comes in and mentors Carlos and has to kind of help him realize his worth as a Ranger, and that whole thing is kind of contrived, of course, in the beginning, with, like, the reason that Carlos thinks that he's not cut out to be a Ranger.
Carlos's face in Countdown to Destruction. and in that episode, too, where he's like...
Yeah, he's a little over the top.
Yeah.
But I like that. Adam also has like this kind of dangerous decision he has to make with his morpher, where, like, he has the choice to help, and he's got a broken morpher, so he can go back to Mighty Morphin. It's also nice to give him, by the way, a way to get back in an old Ranger suit that I actually buy. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a real explanation for it, and it tracks.
Yeah.
Because in later shows, we'll bring back an old Ranger, and they can just morph for no good reason into whatever suit we want them to be able to morph in.
And Adam is in one of those episodes.
That's true. He is.
Like,
yeah, but at least he looks cool. But Adam always
hair.
looks cool. He's great. The Sixth Ranger, Adam, is the one Mighty Morphin replacement that everyone loves. That is true. I think I would agree that is pretty unanimous, right? Mm-hmm. Well, people like Kat. I've never heard anybody say anything against Kat as a character.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Wait, Kat. Mighty Morphin Kat?
Yes.
Okay.
Catherine Sutherland Kat.
Catherine.
Cat.
Yeah, not Cat Mix.
Right.
Max.
Exactly. There's a couple cats that in Power Rangers at large. That's true. Senior Sticks, $2 super chat. Megazords are maybe recycled, stored, salvage morpher. I don't know what that means.
Maybe.
Do you have any idea what he's talking about?
Nope.
Okay, sorry. I read it, and if you want to try to explain that in a later message, I will look for it. Tom also put in a $2 super chat and just said, "I listened to KO35 FM. LOL, a joke." Good one. Thanks, man. But anyway, if you want to elaborate on that, please.
So yeah.
Don't hesitate to leave another comment. And don't feel the need to make that a super chat, but thanks so much for the super chat.
Zane sucks.
Senior Sticks cat used to be able to turn into a cat. That is true. Omari Daniels, do we know which way the other, if the Zeo Rangers can still access their powers? They weren't ever technically destroyed, right? No, they just switched it. My assumption is that the turbo powers are also based on the Zeo crystals. What else would it be?
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure they're still Zeo Rangers. They've just gone with a new coat of paint for no good reason. And new Megazords. I mean, Zordon has no good reason to change that, except he's just gotten bored with the aesthetic of what they had before, and he wants to sell toys. That's my theory, is that Zordon is selling toys.
No, he's just out of Sentai footage.
Oh, Zordon's out of Sentai footage. That's what it is.
So, Zane.
Can we talk about how much of a horrible human being this guy is? And how is he the worst Six Ranger of the shows that you've seen?
He is. Hold up, I gotta look up my episode guide.
You notice that he is not, as much as people like this show, he's not one of the Six Rangers that people tout up as a great Six Ranger.
Yeah. So, the next episode, after he comes back, or after he gets introduced, Andros actually thinks that he's, like, flirting with the Yellow Ranger.
Yeah.
Which he's not, but Andros, like, just thinks that. But then he dates Astronema.
While she's evil.
Yeah.
And not like this thing where he's picked up that she's not actually evil, and that, because I don't know that we even know that she's Corone by this point.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but he's dating the bad guy of the show.
Yeah. And then he just randomly leaves.
Yeah. Yep.
Which we missed the one episode when he left, but
Yep.
because he had to go to the Rebels.
I thought you were going to say he had to go to the restroom. So he had to go to the restroom. Never came back until they really need him at the end of an episode, when he can't possibly even know that the Rangers are in danger or anything.
Yeah.
So I was just off to the restroom. So Zane has 3 big strikes, right?
Yep.
A, dating the villain.
Yes.
B, finds out everybody thinks he's dead, rolls with it as a practical joke.
I totally forgot about that.
And 3, just to be a giant friggin' jerk face, pretend to be a psycho ranger in a hallway to freak the crap out of one of your fellow rangers. Who was it? Was it Andros?
It was Andros.
Yeah. Just to be an a-hole, really.
It was, and it's at, like, isn't it at, like, the end of the show?
Yes.
It's at, like, the very end of the show. Or, like, close.
Of the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have they taken out the psychos at this point, or aren't they still fighting them? I can't. Yeah, and he's just like, wouldn't it be funny if first of all, wouldn't it be funny if I dressed up as a psycho ranger to make you think that they're still around and we're gonna have? They've been fighting these guys for episodes and episodes. They're a huge force. They're really difficult to deal with. It's been real touch and go. Like, it's insensitive at the best, and at worst, it's like you're gonna give your friend a heart attack for no reason. Like, it's in really poor taste, right? But the other thing is, where'd you get that suit? Like, how'd you even do that?
How did he get the Psycho Silver suit?
Yeah. Well,
Like-
my guess there is that he spray painted the suit that he used to freak out Andros silver. But I don't know where he got that suit from.
Well, yeah.
No,
but
he did that earlier.
No, yeah, exactly.
Oh, so he took that suit and he spray painted that red.
Yeah, maybe.
And maybe that's what happened. But where did he get that one?
Yeah. Still, where did he get it? And then he just shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
At the, like, it's like...
He
oh my
drives
gosh,
around in a
we're
stupid dune buggy and that's supposed to be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, we all know, I mean... Okay, this came out 3 years before this, but, I mean, I saw Nemesis before I saw this. So I'm like, really? A dune buggy?
Well, dune buggies and Star Trek don't mix, so this is close enough to Star Trek.
So we gotta do a dune buggy. Wait, did they steal dune buggies from space?
I don't think that's what happened. Yeah, John Logan was just a really big Power Rangers in space fan. Okay, what other aspects of the show do we need to cover?
Episodes.
Okay, go ahead.
Should we start with my favorite episode or my least favorite episode?
Let's start with your favorite episode.
My favorite.
Let's keep it positive for a moment.
And end it on a sour note. We're not. Yeah.
Sure.
So my favorite episode is Flashes of Darkonda.
Oh, well, remind me what happens in that one.
Which is...
That is not the one that I've got for my favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
Which is the one at the casino where
That
Andros...
one is in my top 5 easy.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, that one's great. Where he goes after Zordon's key cards, and then the announcer for the next 28 episodes is like, Zordon's key card! Zordon's key card! Zordon's key card! And then for some reason, by episode, 35, 36, we just stop using the announcer.
Well, we're just so sick of Zordon's key cards.
I really wanted to make a video. I wonder if anybody's done this. I really wanted to make a video putting together the announcer saying all the things that happened previously in Power Rangers, because you'd get a really good synopsis of the whole show with all that, but then it goes up to a certain place and just stops.
Yeah.
And then you'll get previously on Power Rangers.
And then it goes like previously on Lost, where it's just the guy saying previously on... And then he says it at the end.
They show you flashbacks, and then they have to say exactly the same way again. They just reuse that recording previously on Power Rangers in space, and then it's over. So they bookend it with previously on Power Rangers in space, and it's really awkward. I'm like, resolve the chord.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And he does that with next time on Power Rangers in space.
Some really strange choices in the show. But anyway, talk about Flashes of Darkonda.
Yeah. So this episode
on a western backlot.
So yeah, and I'm pretty sure they just reused the Wild West Rangers thing. It looks exactly like that set.
Good call.
But that was a terrible high five, but you know. But my neck is longer than you.
Anyway,
so
you're doing your ET impression.
So
but anyway,
no,
what
that's
else
not
about
the ET. That's not what he does. That's only what he does in the in the really bad video game.
Anyway, what else do you want to say about that episode?
Okay, so basically, they go in like a casino type place, in a Wild West type place, where Andros has his cloak thing that he has like every once in a while, to be secret.
I mean, he's a real cool, unique ranger in that he's a spy, and he doesn't work great with others.
Yeah.
It's really convenient, of course,
Batman.
that he just it's really or James Bond or something. It's convenient that he just happened to have 4 other Power Ranger morphers laying around, and that 4 former Power Rangers show up to his spaceship, and he's got enough morphers for them to all be Power Rangers. Wouldn't it have been really funny if Billy was still around at this point, and he went with them, and he wasn't on Aquitar, and he went with them, and then they gave out all the morphers, and Billy was last, and once again he didn't get one.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So,
guy just can't win.
then he goes to Darkonda. So he finds Darkonda there, and then he asks him about, like, what he did with Corone, like, what happened to Corone.
Yeah.
And then he hands him key cards. Well, no, he doesn't hand him key cards. Andros is like, I'll give you something. No, he wins key cards, and then he gives Darkonda the key cards for information about his sister. And then he steals the key cards back because Darkonda was about to talk about what, like his sister, and then he saw the morpher in his pocket, and then he's like, oh my gosh, you're a ranger. And then he's like, whoosh, I'm a ranger, and then he steals the key cards.
Kind of the beginning of a two-parter. Like, I think those episodes have different episode titles, but
They do.
leads into another one, and it easily
does.
could have. The next episode is where they get the Mega Voyager, or not the Mega Voyager, one of their Megazords. Am I wrong about that?
Maybe.
I thought that whole adventure was where they end up getting, or is it the Mega Voyager?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is. Because you remember the announcer also kept going, and then they got the Mega Voyager!
Yeah, then
we don't need to break down this entire episode.
Yeah, so I like this episode because I was kind of getting bored because this show was not doing very well.
No, this is where it gets good.
And then it gets really good, and it's really dramatic, and it's amazing, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it's my favorite episode.
It's shockingly exciting, and again, it's a good example of not leaning too much on Sentai footage, because a lot of the good stuff in that is stuff we seem to have shot.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite episode of the season is Dark Spectre's Revenge.
Yep.
It's some of the better plotting and dialogue writing in the show, and, you know, that's kind of few and far between. But also, it's just got a real nice kind of ominous tone to it. It watches like, again, like a Star Trek Voyager episode, but in the best sense, or maybe even a little bit more like a DS9 episode, or one of the more ominous TOS episodes, like where there's an asteroid headed for Earth, and we've got to stop that. But we're also dealing with I guess Dark Spectre is sending the asteroid, which is such a weird plot, by the way. So we've got the Sentai footage of an asteroid coming. We're just gonna say Dark Spectre sent it. Dark Spectre sent an asteroid. Could have sent an army. Nope, it's Big Rock. That was really funny. But I like all of the bottle show stuff in that episode.
Yeah.
John Ty, $5 Super Chat. Thoughts on Bulk and Skull becoming heroes in Countdown to Destruction? I like that choice a lot. We never went as far with that as I always thought we should have. Bulk and Skull should have finally been allowed to either become Power Rangers at some point or be, like, in the know. Find out about who the Power Rangers are, whichever season, whichever cast, and be allies with them and help out in some way or another.
And they find out that that's who those are, and then we go to Lost Galaxy. So like,
it's a really awkward moment. We're
and
like,
Bulk
wait,
is
those
in that
guys?
show.
And I'm like, right.
But
and I'm like, how many of those of the Rangers do you even know at this point? Like, I guess they go to high school still, so you know them because they're in high school. I don't know how they go to high school, but yeah. The Bulk and Skull thing this show is really awkward.
Also, do they still go to high school?
Well, maybe.
Like, are they in high school for 6 years?
See, I don't know if it's. Well, here's the thing: we never see any of our Rangers graduate, and I don't know what the actual timetable is. If it's been 6 years in Power Rangers time, or if it's only been like a couple. I couldn't begin to tell you.
Yeah.
But like, we don't actually graduate anybody up in this show. I don't think. I mean, are they not in school anymore in Turbo? I think they are. No, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they still are somehow. They look like 30-year-old people in high school. But yeah, the Bulk and Skull subplot this season is weird because they're not in very many episodes, and they just team up with a mad scientist for no reason and go around looking for aliens. almost as if they didn't get the memo that they're in a Power Rangers show and that there are aliens. It's weird because they treat it like the scientist guy is a total crackpot, and he is like weird and makes a lot of bizarre inventions and seems kind of out of his mind and all of that.
He wants to make he makes an invention that makes things evil.
He's not a bad person, apparently. He's just like, oh, I know, I can make it evil. No explanation whatsoever. He just does that. It's very strange. But yeah, I don't understand that angle of it, where they're like crackpots going around looking for aliens with people kind of laughing at them, like, oh, they think there's aliens around. It's like, you guys get attacked on a weekly basis by aliens. It was a really strange choice, and it was very much like, we're out of ideas, but we like these actors, and we don't want to drop them.
Yeah.
So yeah, hey. Well, let's go ahead and get to worst episodes. We're at an hour. We need to close up here, but we'll go ahead and finish Jason's list of stuff.
Mine is probably the exact same as yours.
Yep, I bet it is.
Grandma Matchmaker.
It's the worst. It's so painful, I don't even want to talk about it. Oh, that woman. I mean, that actress is giving it her all and having a really good time, but at my expense. So you got... it's Cassie's grandmother, right?
No,
or is
it's Ashley.
It's Ashley. So
which makes it even worse.
Even worse, yeah. So I don't care for her either. And we haven't talked about the romance thing with Ashley and or very much anyway.
Yeah.
And Andros, that they're kind of hinting at and going back and forth on through the series, sort of like Tommy and Kimberly a lot, except they kind of straight up hook up and start dating. But here it's like they clearly like each other, but and there's some love triangle stuff here and there, but we don't really go all the way with it. I mean, are they full on together at the end? Is there ever a kiss with that? I don't even remember.
Yeah, there's one at the very end.
Does that happen at the end? That's right.
Well, okay, they either do or they almost do. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Okay, correct me. Well, I don't know if you can, but correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure they try to kiss at the end, and then Zane comes in.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think that does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate him.
But yeah, that grandma episode, like, she comes in and is obsessed with her granddaughter dating, getting married to somebody, and then they pretend like she's dating Carlos, I think. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And then she's like, "Oh yeah, you're dating," and then she finds out that they're that was just a ruse to get her off their backs, and then at the end she kind of helps them against a monster or something. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "I'll show you how tough a grandma can be." What are you looking up right now?
Quotes from this episode.
Why?
Because because that's like the one episode that has like quotes that I remember.
Yeah, because
they're terrible.
It was hard to shake them off. Yeah. It was bad. I don't want to talk about that anymore. It's just
I told you I don't want to end on a sour note though.
So this was also a weird season for bloopers. Because this was that era where they would always do bloopers over the credits, and there's one where they just got really silly with them, and I'm like, I appreciate the creativity, but they just got really weird.
Why are you putting this in the bloopers?
There's one where we get this really poorly made fake commercial for Astronema. It's a breakfast cereal that's got Dark Spectre on it, or like Astronema's on the box, but it's Dark Spectre selling it, and he's like, "Eat Astronema's part of an evil breakfast." It's like, okay. We laughed about that for days. John Ty, $5 super chat. We haven't talked about this yet. The Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers crossover was ridiculous in the show. Plus, the Psycho Rangers plot was great in my opinion. We haven't talked anything like enough about the Psycho Rangers arc. And again, we're past an hour, but we should probably try to do a little bit of that before we end real quick. It's a testament to how much fun the show is and how much meat there is in it. There's quite a bit to talk about. I've talked about the Ninja Turtles episode before because I did a commentary with Dan on that years back. Yeah, but that is a lot better than the Ninja Turtles show that it's crossing over with, of course, because this show had like choreographers and stuff, and the fighting in that is really, really bad. And so if you watch the few episodes of Next Mutation up to that episode of Space, it's bizarrely night and day, and you get this glimpse of how much better that show could have been, even with the terrible acting and writing of the Turtles dialogue. But yeah, anything you want to say about that? I mean, besides just how weird it was that they crossed them.
Yeah, I don't. And then they did a comic, which I was.
Oh, the crossover comic.
Yeah.
More recently.
Yeah, which I was excited for because I was like, I mean, that was.
This thing had
that
never.
was one of the episodes that I always went to.
So the crossover comic has nothing to do with that episode.
No.
But even if that had never happened, I bet inevitably if Power Rangers stayed popular and then got a comic book, we would have still had that, right? Because doing all these, it's such an obvious thing to try to do a crossover with, because Power Rangers doesn't happen without Ninja Turtles. I mean, it's one of the most successful rip-off, knockoff things in history. Power Rangers steals footage from another show and puts it with cheaply made footage from America, and it also rips off Ninja Turtles in every corner. In premise to some degree, just in let's have teenagers with attitude fighting crime, and that's been selling. So let's do that with this thing, but also. In the name, it was not a coincidence that it was the same syllable count in 4 words, and and one of the producers in Toys That Made Us came right out and said that's what we were doing. We started with Power Rangers and we went, we need Teenage Mutant, we have to come up with something, and so it was Mighty Morphin. But anyway, but what about that episode specifically?
I don't know.
Of course, it has to be a mind control plot, right?
Yeah, it was the Ninja Turtles. I don't really have a lot of reasons for going back to a lot of the episodes that I also went back to.
You just really don't like that first half.
I also went back to TJ's Identity Crisis a lot. I don't know why. That episode is terrible. And that used to be my favorite Power Rangers in Space episode. Which is really hard to, because there are a lot of episodes that are really fun and I like from space, but I don't know which is better than which is the best. So I just put the Flashes of Darkana. But yeah.
Let's talk about the Psycho arc for just a minute. My least favorite thing about it is just that it's interrupted with dull sight episodes that are flashing back too much to the stuff we didn't like from the first half. Like the episode with the girl that finds out that Carlos is a ranger. That one is probably my second least favorite episode.
Well, there's also the episode. Well, yeah, but is it worse than the episode with Cassie and Ashley fighting
that is not over chores.
Cleaning?
That's awful.
It's awful.
Let's just make our main characters as unlikable as humanly possible. Let's make you want to punch them in the face at every
what
scene.
No one liked about Mighty Morphin is there were just too many of those, and so let's do it again.
Yeah, but the characters in that show were never as unlikable as Ashley and Cassie are on that.
They do that episode in SPD too.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Well, I totally get we've been living on the spaceship for too long, and we're having to it's small, and we're getting on each other's nerves, and we spend all of our time fighting bad guys and stuff. But they don't lean enough into the reasons that they're at each other's throats. They just start screaming.
Yep.
And the first time I saw it, I thought they must have been under some kind of mind control and they were acting out of character.
That's
like,
what Mighty Morphin did.
Yeah, but at least they would do it that way.
Yeah.
As routine and pointless as that always was. No, you're right. That one is worse. The thing with, and you know what? At least the thing with the girl that finds out that Carlos is a ranger, at least she has a half decent character motivation.
And she comes back.
Yeah, she becomes recurring. But what I was gonna say is, at least she has a half decent character motivation for wanting to use Carlos to do things. Because she's lost a family member. I forget who. They had a whole thing with a moon rock, and he's a Power Ranger, so she was like, "Go get me a moon rock."
Her older brother.
That's what it was. Yeah, and they could have done. I mean, I'm expecting too much with this, but they could have done some kind of a cool character parallel with Andros with that, considering he lost Corona and all of that.
Yeah.
What if it had been an Andros episode instead of a Carlos episode? That may have been smart. I don't know. But anyway, my favorite thing about the Psycho episodes, besides obviously the designs of those suits are great from the Sentai, and there's a lot of really fun voiceover stuff. Somebody mentioned Wally Wingert, of course, he's always great, and neat that he did that.
Yeah.
But my favorite thing about it is just all the battle strategy.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's hilarious.
They keep playing the Ears of the Grey board game.
So they start with the figures of themselves and the psychos on a chessboard, and
Astronema has has I think a different set.
Yes, that she has earlier in the season.
Yeah,
this is how they do battle strategy. They're just moving around action figures, and I mean, there's precedent to that in history, of course. That's Risk was used for that on the battleground, but. This is a much more simplified version where they're just on a chessboard, and they're not playing actual chess, they're just sitting apart from each other, and then there's one episode where TJ goes, hey, wait a minute. So we always go up against, this is one of my favorite moments in the entire series. Maybe my favorite. So we're always going up against the same color of the psychos. What if we did this? He just picks up the figures, and he's like, what if the red one was fighting the pink one? And it's fantastic. Okay. And then later.
But but this one is even better.
That one's really funny just because everybody acts like he's a genius strategist, like he's this brilliant general. Yeah. The one that everybody likes to make fun of course, is the spray paint one.
Yeah, that's what I was cracking up about.
So what happens with that?
So later in the episode, he's like, "Oh no, that's not working. Let's do this instead." So he takes a blue spray paint and he just puts it on them for like 5 seconds.
I wish this is how actual primer worked, because I would get my figures for Heroes of the Grid painted a lot faster.
And he just did this for like 5 seconds, and I was like, nothing's happening. And then he puts it down, and
the footage cuts.
Then the footage cuts, and it's like, like there's like an effect.
And then they're all blue.
There's like that effect, like the dreamy effect, where it goes like, and then they're all blue.
It was really fun to see them all as the same color, which is a thing that we cannot stop doing in the comics.
Yeah.
All the time. Speaking of comics, I think we should review Psychopath at some point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I still have never read that. I bought it. You and Freddie have read it a million times.
I read it like 1,000 times, yeah.
There's one for Time Force now.
Yeah.
And then there's a ongoing. I don't know if they've kept if it's still going right now, but there's an ongoing that does that same kind of thing where it's kind of like background history stories with different eras of Power Rangers. Is it called? It's like Ninja Turtles universe-wise, except they're standalone single issues, and I think they're oversized, and I forget if it's called Power Rangers Universe or if it's called. No, it's not. I forget what that's called. But anyway, they're still doing stuff like that with different things, and there's a space one for that too, that gives some more background for Corona. I think it's a flashback piece with her and Ecliptor, maybe. Oh, we haven't talked about, well, anything else you wanted to mention about the Psychos? Because I know that's everybody's favorite thing with this. The ghost thing is fun.
It's really funny because they're just there in one of the teasers, and then you're expecting something to happen. Nope. And then when the announcer guy goes away, it's kind of funny because it's like, you have to get them all in the middle, and I crack up every time because it's always in the previously on. So it's like, get them all in the middle. And they're like screaming.
The Psycho Silver thing was a good ruse. I mean, I hate Zane, but
yeah, it only happens for like 6 seconds, and everyone loves it. But
that's just because everybody likes the Psychos and they want to see it in every kind of color. Like, Psycho Green was such a big deal when that happened in the comics. Although part of the reason that was a big deal was because we didn't have very many mentions of anything outside of Mighty Morphin at that point. Mm-hmm. So to just turn a page in the middle of an issue and there's a downed spaceship with Psycho Green, who's a character we didn't even know existed, on the moon in the 70s was freaking mind-blowing.
Yeah.
We had some flashback panels or flash-forward panels, I guess, that would show us different things during, like the introduction of Draken, where you'd see Ninjor and some different things that we hadn't gotten to yet. That was kind of a big deal. But that was the first major, like, in our timeline thing that was like, oh, we are going to go to some things apart from Mighty Morphin. That's cool. And of course, now we've done tons of it, but oh, we didn't talk about the Dark Clipter thing, which is weird.
Yeah.
Because it happens way earlier than I thought it did.
Me too.
And then they bring it back.
For 2 seconds. They do it, yeah, they do it for a second, and then they split off again, and Darkonda dies, I think? Again?
If only they'd had more footage for it, because that's obviously a thing they did because of Sentai footage.
Yeah.
But if they had more, if we could have shot some, they could have left them in the same body for a while, and it might have been neat to do a sort of Tuvix thing with it, where they're together and create kind of a new personality, and then when they split off again, maybe it would change their relationship because they have this adversarial relationship. They're kind of bitter rivals, arch nemesis.
Yeah, for some reason I remembered them like talking to each other inside of the same. But that never happens.
It would have been really fun if it did, though.
Yeah, I thought they did that.
If they kept their personalities and. But anyway, well, we're gonna have to get going. But thanks a lot. There's more stuff we could talk about with this, but surprisingly, it didn't show for Power Rangers. But I'm glad we finally talked about it, and I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Jason and I will be back with you again real soon for another one. I'm not gonna announce yet what we're doing next time, but it's gonna be a different kind of really fun thing.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a kind of a commentary thing for you next time, but I don't want to reveal what it's on yet. It'll be fun, and I think we'll go into that one blind, Jason. The thing that we're talking about doing. We'll do kind of a reaction video for you next time. It'll be worth it, trust me. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. We'll see you again real soon. I hope you had a good time. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for the comments. And you guys are great for jumping in live. Thanks for watching after the fact. If you did that, leave us some comments and let us know what you think about Power Rangers in space. Where does this fall in your favorite, or at least favorite, Power Ranger shows? What is your favorite? All that kind of stuff. Let us know. We'll do some more Power Rangers content for you again real soon. We're talking about doing some stuff with the comics because I haven't talked enough about those. And anyway, in the meantime, I was Captain Logan.
And I was Jason.
Later, folks.